and Samantha and I are the owners of JSRC Group. We are therapists. We are couples therapists, family therapists, and we spend a lot of our time as fertility therapists talking to and supporting people throughout the journey that they are each individually or as a couple going through. As Dr. Levy mentioned, there are emotional components of the journey that have often been overlooked. And one of the reasons Samantha and I created our practice is to address those. I'll turn it over to Sam to introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Samantha Levy, and Jennifer and I are, as we said, we're trained marriage and family therapists. We have hundreds of hours of training doing couples therapy. And so we have a private practice in Stamford, Connecticut. We also work with egg donor agencies and surrogacy agencies and IVF clinics, such as New England Fertility, where we like to help couples who are not necessarily having difficulty with their journey, but just to help them navigate through the decisions that they have to make and help them understand that support is really important. It's a long journey and you need a good support system. And so choosing your agency, your egg donor, a surrogate if you need, your clinic, and to have therapists to help you is really important. Thanks for coming today, and we hope that you enjoy this.
So Talia and Irene, just say a few words.
Good morning, California. I'm so sorry. Good morning, California. Good afternoon, New York. Good night, Israel. We have a lot of intended parents here today and donors too. I'm very, very excited to be a part of this seminar. First of all, like we was intended parents who need that support when we start our journey a couple of years ago. We started this agency because our son was born by surrogate mother. The process was very, very emotional for us. And after our son was born, I said, I need to do something different in my life. And this is how I became the chosen one. Our agency is specialized for Jewish donors. We have over 150 Jewish donors available, and we are the biggest Jewish agency in the world. We have non-Jewish too. We have Asian, Indian, and a lot of Afro-American, and everything you are looking for, you can find in our donor database. We have 4 locations in New York City, in 5th Avenue in Manhattan, in Tel Aviv in Israel, in California, in Los Angeles, and we are in San Diego. I'm really, really proud to help intended parents, and this is why I started this agency with a lot of passion. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you so much, Samantha and Jennifer and Dr. Lavy, to be part of this seminar. I think this is something really important for intended parents, and we will speak about our journey very soon. This is Yarin, is my VP, sometimes my husband, sometimes my VP, but today is my VP, and he's helping me a lot with this agency. Hi, Yarin.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure being here and seeing you all. One thing I will add to that as Talia said, on the other hand of the agency that she started a few years back, we started as intended parents, and we had two kids that born through surrogacy, and one is almost 7 years old, and the other one is 4 months old, and that's something we'll be touch later about our journey, about surrogacy, and that is also a part of this journey as well. Thank you. So I think, you know what, I think probably we should introduce our beautiful donor. I think Talia can do that. Yes. And maybe tell us her story.
Okay, we have today donor 407. She's amazing, amazing one. Donor, are you there? If you can.
Hi everyone, I'm here.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks, and how's everyone?
This is great. Good to see you. I just want you a little bit, if you can, before Samantha and Jennifer take and ask you a question about the journey. I just want to, if you can give us a little bit more information about you, how many cycles you did, how you feel about this, and Samantha and Jennifer, you can
Sure.
take and ask questions from there.
Sure. So, well, thank you for the introduction, first of all. And I would like to begin by saying I'm very humbled to be a part of this webinar and to share my experience with everybody. It has been an absolute blessing to be a part of the Chosen One. It has been a greater experience than I could have ever expected. And I will truly remember it forever. And the reasons why is because I made a memorable interaction through with them, and I developed a great love and respect for their entire team because of their supportiveness and their dedication to making sure that the donor and the intended parents are always felt at ease. They answered all my sometimes silly questions, and they were always there every step of the way, from the start of the process till the end and beyond. And I'm still a part of the Chosen One for that very reason, and I'm very happy. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, so because we are the therapists, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about what egg donation means to you.
Yes.
And so tell us, what was your motivation to become an egg donor?
So I've always been a person that's conditioned to helping others. And when I first heard about it, I didn't actually know that it even existed. And after hearing about it, I couldn't stop dreaming about it, thinking I could change someone's life in such an amazing way, and I can impact their life and make their dreams come true. And to me, that felt like a dream come true for me.
You know, as I think
Yes.
our connection, yes, you're back. Okay, you were frozen for a second. So thanks for sharing
Oh,
that.
sorry.
Are you back? You're good. Okay. Thanks
Yes.
for sharing that. You know, one of the things that often comes up from intended parents is wanting to understand what are the things that egg donors think about before embarking on the process. And as related to that, one of the questions that we often deal with, or the things that intended parents think about, are what were your thoughts on a relationship with intended parents, on intended parents in general, knowing who egg donors are, and you knowing that there are people out there in the world that you help create. So we wanted to touch on that because that's something that we often talk about with the intended parents who we're working with.
So I feel, if I'm understanding the question correctly, that if the child were wanting to meet with me, I would definitely say yes. If the intended parents would want to meet with me, I would definitely say yes. It is not something that I am. I know that most of them are anonymous, but if the parents were willing to meet me, I would definitely agree to it. And I would love to. I think from a donor's perspective, I think it actually builds a greater connection between us and the intended parents. And yeah, I would personally love it. I hope you got everything this time.
Yes, we did.
You know, one of the things that comes up as related to that is, you're right, anonymous, donors have been
Yes.
something that is extremely important to people, but with
Yes.
technology and with people able to go and find out what their backgrounds are, this is an issue that just comes up more and more with both donors and intended parents. So we thought it was important to
Yes.
touch on, and for people to hear what your perspective is on that, because there has been this shroud of the importance of anonymity that is shifting somewhat because of the availability of finding out what your background is genetically. And
Yes. Yes.
really changed over time. So this has become a question that we are asked very often, and intended parents are really interested in knowing from an egg donor. So we appreciate you being able to respond to that today.
Thank you. I'm so glad that I could have answered those questions for you too.
I just want to let the parents know when they go into donor database or our donor database, they can see a lot of information about the donor, about health. If we can do share, I can show you.
Yeah, we can show donor 407 profile as she speak and you speak, guys, just so you can see what we're talking about. Yeah, please continue.
This is her full profile. This is her full profile, her picture. You will see a lot of picture when she was child. She look right now. Sometimes picture with the family. This is her mom. Full profile. A lot of information about the donor, about where she live, about health and medical, about family, educated, her personality, what she like to eat, what favorite color she like. If she did donation, you can see the donation here. And what is very special, you can see a video how she's talking about the process, who she is, and you can feel connect. The second part of the health, Dr. Lavy can say what they screening and what they're looking for about the donor.
So, of course, when we are looking for donors, we are looking for women who are healthy and women who have good eggs. Obvious. The way we do that, essentially we get a detailed history, personal history, family history, and we only take women who are under the age of 30, just because they're more likely to have good ovarian function and good eggs and essentially more viable embryos. So that's just sort of the entry criteria, and then the donors go through very rigorous screening. They go through a thorough medical evaluation. We do quite a bit of a psychological evaluation, as Samantha and Jennifer can tell you more detail. We do also quite a bit of genetic screening. The donor will meet with a genetic counselor and create a family tree, as well as we do a genetic panel for recessive conditions. Of course, we do a very extensive panel of infectious disease testing. So all these are required in order for the donor actually to be able to work with a couple. And I think one of the things for the intended parents, I know part of their anxiety has to do with the fact, how do we know that the donor is healthy? How do we know that she's been tested? So that's one of the things that basically we put a lot of emphasis on and make sure that we can present, the agency can present you with a donor that's been completely screened, and basically we know as much as we can about her.
Samantha and Jennifer, I would love to know a little bit what you're doing with egg donors, what assessment, what you're asking and what you are looking for.
Sure, absolutely. So we follow the ASRM guidelines for psych screening for egg donors. And basically what we're looking for is we're ruling out any personality disorders or anything that we feel let me start again, I'm sorry. What we're basically looking for is we want to make sure that she understands exactly what donating your eggs means. We want to make sure that when she gets older, she's not going to regret her decision. We want to make sure that she understands the medical process. We do talk a little bit about that. And we want to talk to her about who she would like to donate her eggs to. Is she okay with same-sex couples, hetero couples, individuals? So that's basically what we do. We usually do an hour-long interview with the donor, and then they also take a personality assessment test.
Yeah, Sandra, we asked the donor today about her decision to become a donor and also her thoughts on relationship with an IP. We always want to make sure we're touching on these important components because there are emotional components along the journey, and there, as you both know, there are decisions and that involve your partner, that involve your family, that involve people in your life. And it's the same for the egg donor. So we often ask, who have you shared this with? Who in your life have you told? Who do you have support from? Similar questions that we ask to the intended parents, because we want everyone to understand that this is not just a business transaction, that these are people, and that there are people involved with this, there are emotions involved in with this journey. And we want to make sure that as therapists, we're always attending to those relationships, those questions of support, those questions of emotion. So we're asking questions that are going to help agencies and clinics make decisions, and we're going to ask questions that we as therapists that help us sleep at night, to know that everybody's thought through the important things to them and the people in their lives.
And just from the medical part, of course, when we go through a journey, we always feel as if the donor is our main concern. We want to make sure the donor goes through the process safely, both from the physical side and then for the emotional side. So much of the psychological assessment of the donor has to do with that, just to make sure that she understands the implications and what it means and what's going to happen in the future as much as possible. Of course, from the intended parent's point of view, the idea is that you get somebody who's healthy emotionally, mentally, and that's the other part of the screening of the donor.
Thank you, Dr. Gad. Next question, please.
So we wanted to bring the donor back if we could, just for a few minutes.
Donor 407.
Thank you.
Great.
I'm back.
Great. So we want to talk a little bit about your first donation, because you have donated before.
Yes, I have.
Okay, great. And was it a known donor, or was it a known relationship, or was it anonymous?
It was anonymous.
Oh, it was. Okay, great.
Yes.
And how did you feel about that? About not knowing where the eggs were going?
So, I'm a firm believer in that God will always cross our paths if it's meant to be. And I know for a fact that whoever, and I say who because whether it's couple or individual, whoever is going to be raising that child is what God has chosen. And that is what I believe. So, yes.
Great. And who in your life did you tell that you were going to be an egg donor and that you were an egg donor?
Okay, so first I started with my best friend. She was very supportive because she's in the same age group as me as well. She also at first never knew that we could actually donate our eggs. So she was surprised, and we chatted about it. I shared some research that I've done with her, and she was very supportive. The next person was my mom. And I think as a typical mother, she was very nervous in the beginning and hesitant, and I wanted her blessing in it. So she followed what she thought was best and phoned up our local gynecologist and double checked with our gynecologist if everything was safe. And she had the questions, obviously, will she still be able to have children? And once the gynae gave her the all clear, and once I had shown her all the lovely research that I had found on TCO, she was extremely happy and gave me my blessing and very supportive to the whole process.
Great. Thank you for your time today. We really do appreciate it. Talia, did you want to follow up, ask any final questions to your donor?
She knows how I love her, and I love all my donors. I just want to say thank you so much for the amazing job you did for another family. You give something from yourself to people who cannot be a parents if you don't help them. Maybe for you it is small things, but for people you give them a life. And I know God bless you, and I want to say 10 times thank you so much. And all of my donors, they are first of all my daughters. I'm always supporting like a mom. But thank you so much for that. Intended parents cannot say to you thank you. I think this is so grateful what you do and what our donors do. Thank you so much again. And
thank you. And from a donor's perspective, you know, it's just as rewarding for us. You know, it's a dream come true for us to be able to help another family or individual make their dreams come true. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share my experience with everyone.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Same to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I will add to that each donor is see the things differently and look at the prospect and everything differently. So this is something that we need to keep in mind. I can say on behalf of our agency that most of the donors will want to stay anonymous. They don't want to anyone to contact them in 20 years down the line. I don't even know if they're thinking what's going to happen always, 20 years down the line. And that one, it's very good that you do this assessment with them. And again, it's also today with technology moving forward, things like 23andMe and all these kind of tests. So if a donor going to do donation, then she's going to do 23andMe, then probably sometime in the future, she will get some kind of a match. And this is just something for the donor and for the parents to keep in mind.
True. And we also talk to, we call them recipients, we talk to the people who are receiving the eggs about this also. So when it comes to disclosure to the child, what you're going to tell your child, if you're going to tell your child, if you're not going to tell your child, what can possibly happen in the future. And so with that said, we are running on time. So we want to switch now gears a little bit and talk about surrogacy. So.
Yes, so as I said, I mean, we have basically the whole range here of agency owners, therapists, egg donors, and intended parents. So I think it'd be good if at this point Talia and Yarin can tell us in a few words about their journey, and then give Jennifer and Samantha an opportunity to expand on some of those issues.
A second, before you start, I just see that we have a guest that asking question, and it's wonderful. We encourage you to do that. And if we cannot touch it right now, there will be time in the end to answer all the questions. You can still post it up if you have any question, and we'll be happy to answer when we get there, if we didn't cover it so far. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, now I will speak a little bit about like intended parents. The journey to have someone to carry your child, it's not so easy. First of all, I can say I'm control freak, unfortunately. My journey was very, very hard to give somebody else to carry my child. Before carrying my child, when you understand you cannot carry your child, it's broke my heart and make me to be very, very sad. And for a couple of months, I said, oh my gosh, what I'm going to do and how I'm going to build my family. Do you want to speak a little bit about that? I think you are more.
I think that, again, when we came in, I think most of the intended parents coming in, they don't know a lot. Today there is more information out there. We started our journey back in 2011, I think, or something like that. So there is not a lot of there's not tons of information that you want to seek for, and you just go into something that's a little unknown. We didn't have this kind of emotional help or anything. And it's not always something, especially in the beginning, that you share everyone with, maybe one or two close friends. So it's basically very much us have to deal with it as a husband and wife. And it's all the emotion is it's a big roller coaster. There is no other way to put it. It's not always shiny and beautiful, and it's not always sad and gray. It's you have time that you're excited, you have time that you're anxious, you have time that you're disappointed, and it's always changing towards, because there is a lot of things that can change at any moment in this process. And so that's the way it was for us. And we personally a little different. So I'm much more, Talia is much more emotional, I'm much more logic, and I still remember that day that if we got an answer and that something didn't work right or something, and we had to postpone, and you had to sometimes to put more money in because something failed. So Talia was devastated, and I was, okay, how do we? And we always have to make some kind of a bridge between us about it.
I think it's really, really important, this seminar, and this is why we connect. I think intended parents like us, if we was like today, and we know we have a group like yours, group, like what you're doing and helping the intended parents, I think our life was much better. I can say it's almost, we almost divorced, because it was so hard for me to talk with anyone. Like, I was so sad. It's now take me, I became emotional. It's now take me a couple of years. Um, People, if you hear me, you need help. We have amazing people here can help you and hold your hand. A lot of people don't want, in my agency now I know, a lot of people don't want to share the parents, they don't want to share the friend. They do everything so alone. If you don't want to share with your parents, just go to people like Samantha and Jennifer and let them to help you. Um, if you feel alone, this is something you sometimes we take decision not correct and not good way.
Thank you guys for telling your story. It's really important, I think, to hear.
Yeah, I think listening to both of you speak, what's really interesting is when we think about all of the components that go into having a baby in this way, and we often are focused on the logistics and the medical components of this. And you both touched on the fact that this is much more than that. And we wanted to address some of the things that you said. And actually, Talia, you addressed the first thing that we had wanted to mention, which is support and who you are going to tell when you're going through this. Because whether you're the egg donor or you're a surrogate or your intended parents, it's important to think about, where are you getting support in this process? Who are you sharing this with? What kind of community do you have around you? And if you don't have a lot of support, where are you going to go seek it? Whether it's through people going through similar things like you're going through in support groups, through webinars, with a therapist, with a friend. But that's the thing that we find is most often taken for granted, is we focus so much as intended parents on the logistics of the process, understandably, and the medical components and the price of the process, that our own relationships can suffer. And we don't think a lot about taking care of ourselves and where can we turn. And so that's the one place we do like to encourage people to think through before the process. It's as important as which agency and which clinic and where the egg donor is coming from and who our surrogate is and if we're going to use a surrogate. So that's the first thing that we wanted to touch on. And so we really appreciate that you both mentioned that, because I think it's easy to see that from the back end of the process. And you two are kind enough to share your story and to share that. But people don't often realize that going into the process. So it's really important to have people like both of you who are willing to tell others what your experience with that has been, because we agree.
Thank you so much for that. I think because I was very, very emotional with that surrogacy process, it was very important for me to support other intended parents and not be alone in this process. I'll be honest with you, help myself too. When I'm helping people, is helping me with my journey. I really, really want to make intended parents to let them feel like they are not alone and support him. I know I'm doing a small part, and this is why it's really important. And I said again, to go to therapy and to make people like you to help them.
It's interesting because we're speaking to you both 11 years after you really started your journey. And Jennifer and I have some clients in our practice that didn't come to us when they were in their journey or even before, but they're coming to us now, and they have been successful and they have children, and they still talk about how they struggled just to make the decision to go and see a fertility specialist, just to what do they do when it doesn't work? How did they come together, or how did they not come together when things didn't work? How did they depend on each other or lean on each other or not during that process? And so I think because we are trained to do this well, we're able to help couples. And a lot of the focus is on the female a lot of times, especially with the medical procedure, if you're doing your own IVF cycles, or if you're participating in some medical way, and the men are often ignored. And so I think with therapy, at least, both partners are able to talk. They're able to say what they're thinking. They're able to have a place where it's okay to say the things that they may not be comfortable saying to anyone else. And we often will sit in the therapy room with couples and say, oh my God, I can't believe that they don't say this to each other at home, but people don't. And for whatever reason, having a third person to ask difficult questions, to initiate difficult conversations is really very helpful.
Maybe I can, for Samantha and Jennifer, when you speak to intended parents and they have to make that leap to basically say, okay, we're not going to try with our own, we're going to work with an egg donor. How do you find that to work within the couple? Who has more of an issue? Is the woman or the man? And how do they get around that? Yes.
Okay. That was a question. I'm sorry. So, so I know from my experience working in the clinic for many years that partners aren't always on the same page when they come for their initial consultation, and it's something that the doctor does pick up on. And the staff is really not equipped to be able to deal with that. So, it's hard, and it's really difficult because a lot of times we will see one partner is more motivated than the other partner, or maybe, the wife is doing it for the husband, or the husband is doing it for the wife. And so without even asking them really, we're just assuming all of this is going on, and there's so much more going on behind the scenes when they leave the office that the clinic and this clinic staff really doesn't know.
Yeah, and I think it goes to a bigger conversation about relationships, which you alluded to, and what you were saying too, is we are all, as couples, different people. So one person may be more rational, one person may be more emotional, one person may be more reactive. And like any other decision, whatever the relationship dynamic is between you is going to come out in spades when you're dealing with something that is a big decision. So that is the most important time to be able to acknowledge who you are and what matters to you and how you'll react. And that conversation to have with your partner, or if you're going through this on your own with someone else, is so important, because we all are who we are. So some of us are more emotional, and some of us are more logical and more rational, and some of us may be able to get our brains around these decisions in different ways. We just want to know, and doctors want to know, and everybody involved, that everyone has thought through all of these things in their own way, and there's no right way to think through it. It's just important to think through it, because we're people, and we're all people who react differently and reach decisions in different ways. And those are the things as therapists that we like couples or individuals going through this to address, so that doctors, agencies, clinics know and feel confident that all of the parties involved have thought through these important topics.
And yeah, I will add two things. First, we're talking about the obvious, that it's a regular intended parents, husband and wife. We have a lot of same-sex couples. We have a lot of single parent, 60, 65 years old. So we really have it's a very broad age groups, and sometimes it's one parent, sometimes it's two parents. We even have three one time. So it's a lot of things changes, and it's very important to have it. And I can tell on a case that, even two cases, one of them that we had, that in this case it was a husband and wife, and they started an egg donation process, and they almost got a divorce even before we had the retrieval. I'm not even talking about surrogate or getting pregnant. Before we had the retrieval, they almost broke the relationship. It was a few years back. We didn't have you guys, but that's a great example when you can step in and have them help them set up everything between them. And I can say that the other way, it was about a week ago when we had Indian parents that contact us, and it was a woman that she's married, and she told us, I want to do egg donation, but my husband don't want any part of it, and he's not willing to sign anything. And we offered them some help. They didn't want to. We didn't take this case just because it's too complicated legally to go to something like that when the husband don't want any part of it, and you can ask for custody later on and things like that. So it's very emotional, and you need somebody to put your thought together a lot of times during this process.
One of the things that often surprises me, especially when you see a heterosexual couple, and there's the woman who needs to use an egg donor and basically giving up her genetic material, and the man which will have a child with his own genetics. Every once in a while you see that the objection to the process or the difficulty comes from the male partner. So, to Jennifer and Samantha, just maybe you can touch on that.
Did you want us to touch on that?
Yes.
Oh, so do you want to go through answer that? So the objection coming from the male partner?
Yeah, I have to think about that for a second. So there's an objection coming from the male partner because he feels guilty that he is able to have his own biological child. And so I can see that happening. I don't have a lot of experience working with couples like that. But we do often work with women who are grieving the loss of their fertility, their loss of their genetics being carried on. I mean, we all, as women, for those of us that are women in heterosexual couples going through the process, we always imagine, even when we're young, what our child would look like. Will she have my eyes? Will she have my disposition? And so, giving that up is really hard. For some women, it's not hard at all. And for others, it takes years to be able to accept that they have to give that up, to give up that dream or give up that hope or that option. But I can say with certainty and from experience that every intended parent who uses an egg donor comes back to tell us with the child afterwards that they don't understand why they had doubts, because the minute that they saw their child born, they were madly in love with their child, and they never think, years later, they never ever think that they used an egg donor. It's their child.
Every day I'm doing a lot of Zoom call with intended parents, and the first question is how I will feel about this child. I will feel connected about this child. I have intended parents from Los Angeles. Day before she's supposed to deliver the baby, she called me, she cried, and she said, I'm going to love this child. This was two boys. I'm going to love this child, and they are 6 months old now. And every Shabbat, she sent me a picture, and she is so happy. Intended parents, if you see me right now, you will not feel any difference if it's yours or not, when you carry your child, when you wake up in the night, when you have the first smile, when you have all this love, you will not feel any different between if it's your child, biologic or not.
Yeah, just to add to that, that we always go to the obvious that I will not feel connected before because this is not my genetic. But if you look at all the other things that do happen and all the connection and the similarity to a regular birth, which means this child will not be exist if you wouldn't do it because you pick an egg donor, you bring in the sperm. If you weren't there, this child wasn't exist. So this is a big thing that is very similar. And you are the one responsible for this child since when you see it the first time, you understand that if you don't give him food, if you don't take care of him, he's going to be hurt. So all the responsibility is on you. So everything is similar to a regular mother that giving birth, just beside that maybe it's not your genetic or you didn't give birth. But the minute we had the baby in our child in our hands, we knew right away that this is our child because we need to take care of them. Because if I leave them there, nobody else was going to do it.
I just want to touch this point. This is why we very have a lot of information in our donor database. You're going to choose your child. It's not like I give you now something and I said, okay, this is your child. No, we have so much donors and you're going to pick your child. It means your genetic child. It means you can pick blue eye, brown eye, everything you want, you can find there. I think this is emotional. It's like, something like I picked you, like to be my child. I think a woman can feel more comfortable. And let's talk about the Jewish community. And this is something very important. Before I start this agency, I remember Dr. Lavy, me and you spoke about this. I came to you and I said, Dr. Lavy, I want to start a Jewish egg donors. You look at me like that, it was paused for 20 seconds, you tell me, listen, I am 30-something years in the business. I saw so few Jewish egg donors. I will support you, but don't be so excited. We are supporting the Jewish community now because we have over 150 Jewish donors available. Why it's important for Jewish couple to have a Jewish donor? You know, if we're talking about the halacha, some rabbis say the delivery woman or the surrogate or the mother is supposed to be a Jewish. Some doctors said, some rabbis said the genetic of this child need to be Jewish. And if we're talking about the chumrah, rabbis now more feel connected good if the donor and the delivery be a Jewish. It means the baby is a Jewish. You know, for Jewish community, and if I'm talking about the religious Jewish community, and I have my rabbis and I can see her here, Jewish people, if they need to take egg donors, they want someone like him. Why? Because our generation, because because how we grew up, I think Jewish people will feel more comfortable to choose someone like him. And this is why it's really important to support the Jewish community too. And I think it's less emotional for him because they're choosing someone like him.
And I would say also that we also never on a judging point. And I think when you find a partner and marry him and have a child with him, you pick the one that you like. If you don't like tall men, you're not going to pick a tall partner. And that's exactly the same thing when you have a baby. You pick somebody you like and feel connected. You pick the one you want because that's what you do in real life when you meet a partner and bring kids with him. You pick somebody you choose, somebody you want. And that's why I think it's very important that the people on that making this decision will pick someone that they both feel good with him, feel connected to him.
You're right. So I don't want to cut you guys off, but we want to also allow for questions and answers. Are you okay moving on with, Talia, you want to move on with questions and answers?
Okay.
Yeah, okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, so someone had asked us if we're going to cover surrogate, the subject of surrogacy. So can you be a little more specific about, I don't want to say your name, this is, of course, it's confidential, the participants are all confidential, but as far as surrogacy is concerned, Talia, can you talk a little bit about your relationship with your surrogate?
You know, we are more focused about egg donation, but we started surrogacy a couple of months ago. No, first of all, we need to search the surrogate and to see who she is and to have the whole record and send it to the doctor. And I'm sure Dr. Lavy see a lot of record every day. After she is cleared medically, we're doing match between the intended parents and the surrogate, and then we move this case to surrogacy agency to do the whole process. Yes, we have a Jewish surrogate. You know, it's so many surrogacy agency here in the United States, but we are try to be focused about surrogacy with the Jewish community. If we find, you know, it's very, with the Jewish community and the Jewish law, she's supposed to be with kids and not married. And it's very, very tough to find a surrogate like that, because if we're going by the Judaism, by the law, she's supposed to be like that way, not married, and maybe divorce is okay, but not married, but with kids.
I will take you to the other direction of as an IP. When you, well, it's changes between everyone, of course, each person is different. Me and Talia always feel like we want the best relationship possible with our surrogate, because she's doing something amazing. She's helping us, she's doing very big deal, very, very big thing for us. And we were always trying to give her the best. And whenever we came to visit them in doctor appointments, stuff like that, and it was like 4 hours flight, if I'm not mistaken. So we took the kids out, we hang up with the kids, we went for vacation, and we took them for a resort. And it's not something that you're supposed to do as intended parents, but the connection and the relationship was very, very, very important for us during that process. And I think it's something that it's very helpful. If you are intended parents, you're going through it, I would always suggest you to have the best relationship you can with the surrogate, to let her feel as comfortable as you can.
Samantha, I just want to ask you what you are doing with surrogate. Can you tell me a little bit what the assessment look like and what you're looking for?
Of course. So we are asked by agencies and by clinics to do surrogacy evaluations. So every surrogate needs to be evaluated medically and psychologically. So usually it's done in conjunction with the clinic. And what we like to do, it's very similar to an egg donor evaluation, where the therapist or the psychiatrist will sit with the surrogate for an hour, talk to her about surrogacy, learn a little bit about her and her family. Of course, they are all already mothers themselves. We talk about that, what motherhood means to them. Have they told their children yet? How will they tell their children? Have they been a surrogate before? It's very common for surrogates to do more than one journey. We talk about that as well. And I think the most important part of that interview is, of course, to discuss expectations. So what are their expectations of being a surrogate? We also would like to do, we do a match screen as well. So we sit with the intended parents, or the intended parent if it's an individual, and the surrogate and her partner if she has one. And we talk about what the relationship is going to look like. How much communication does each party want to have? That's very important. We find that post-birth, we do interview some of the surrogates, and we find out that it's very awkward for the surrogate at times because they don't know exactly how much information the intended parents want. And they generally want to share everything with the intended parents. Sometimes there is a cultural difference, and so we Jennifer and I really try to help with that. We do a lot of intended parent and surrogate one-on-one sessions during the pregnancy. Sometimes there is conflict, but usually there's not conflict. And so we like to talk about the birth, what will happen in the delivery room, what will happen after, what type of relationship do the intended parent or intended parents want with their surrogate after. Does the surrogate want a relationship after? So these are all the things that we do as therapists. Then the agency usually takes over, and the agencies are great about handing over to us when things go a little bit awry.
Thank you so much. I want to ask the same question to Dr. Lavy, if you can say like what you are looking for when you see a surrogate, what you need to take care of.
So similar to the egg donors, of course, we're looking for someone who's healthy, mentally, physically healthy. And of course, different than the egg donor, where we're looking for good eggs, we're looking for someone who we know can carry. So the requirement, the first requirement for a surrogate is that she has her own children. And that helps, you know, at least from the medical perspective, because we can look at her records and her history and her pregnancies and deliveries. But I think also from the emotional perspective, I think it's an amazing thing that surrogates do, that they actually carry the pregnancy and then for somebody else, and then give the child to the parents. So I think to ask that of someone who's never been pregnant, who doesn't really know what it's like and what she's going to feel like when she's pregnant, I think it's too much. So even from the emotional, psychological perspective, choosing someone who has children is really, really important.
Dr. Levy, we have one more question here. Maybe
Yes.
you can answer. Do I first find a donor or surrogate?
I'm sorry?
Do you find a donor first or a surrogate first?
Well, see, I think what usually happens, sort of the natural process, is that for most people, I mean, you need to have sperm, you need to have an egg, and you need to have someone to carry. So usually if it's your sperm, your partner's sperm, we usually get that first. For most people, even though it's I think a big decision to pick a donor, most people pick a donor within a couple of months. And then usually what actually happens is that because of the availability and difficulty of finding surrogates, it usually takes a little bit longer to find a surrogate. So usually what happens, if you decide that you want to start the process and do everything in parallel, is usually you have sperm and you have an egg donor, and we immediately then create the embryos. The embryos actually are frozen after they're created and with no impact on the viability, and then they just sit there waiting for the surrogate to come along. So once we find a surrogate, we vet her, we prep her, we can immediately do the embryo transfer. So that's usually the way it works. Some people actually prefer to do it in parts, so they make the embryos first, make sure they have embryos, and only then start looking for a surrogate.
I just want to answer to this intended mother. To create embryos, it can take less for 2 months. We do that a lot, Dr. Lavy. It's very fast. When you find a donor, you can start to find a surrogate because we do our job very, very fast.
Yeah, I would say in general, there is a lot of egg donors available. If you are not too picky, then you can very fast start a cycle with a donor that's available. Even now with COVID, we still have donors flying and everything is pretty much working the same. However, with surrogate, it's something that's a little more complicated to find. It takes more time.
It's longer.
It's longer. And for that reason, a lot of agencies will not give you a surrogate if you don't have an embryo ready. So that's why also, as Dr. Lavy said, a lot of them start with the egg donor before, because surrogate agency will not let you hold the surrogate once you don't even have embryo ready for transfer. So this is something to be considered.
Can you answer this question? We have 2 minutes.
Yes. How do I find a Jewish donor? Yeah, you can answer that.
The chosen one, egg donation. Just type the chosen one egg donation agency. We will be happy to taking care of you and be part of your process. I'm working every day until midnight to make people happy. When I see pregnancy tests and the babies, it gives me so much power to move forward. And I'm sure, Samantha, Jennifer, and Dr. Lavy, this is what make us to keep working so hard, to wake up so early, to sleep so late, to talk with people in the midnight from Israel, from Australia, from South Africa, from Europe. And it's international intended parents, and you always want to give them the best you can. And this is something you sleep with that people and wake up with the question of what I need to do and how to make people to be happy and fast process and successful process. And I know you have that patience. I know Dr. Lavy, I know you for many years. You help us with our family. Samantha, I know you for 10, maybe less years. I know how you working so hard and support people and make people to be to feel great. And I think you are the right person to do what you do right now. And I'm so sorry you don't start many years ago and support us. But thank you so much, Jennifer and Samantha. I think people need to know you and make that need to know, have people, amazing people like you, and supporting something so important in this process.
I will.
And Samantha and Jennifer made just a few words.
Oopsie.
Fire alarm.
Fire alarm.
Okay, I will just add to that also in our agency, when we say Jewish donor, it's usually a donor that has records, that we have rabbis that approve that she is Jewish. It's not just because the donor says she's Jewish. It's also something very important.
Dr. Lavy, just I think one more question. Somebody asking here. She's a 55 years old. She's okay to be a mother.
She's okay to be a mother as long as she's healthy. And with of course, what we've learned, and one of the things that's still amazing, is that you can take someone who doesn't have eggs or someone who's in menopause, and she can still carry a pregnancy. So what is really the limiting factor is for women mostly is the age and the ovarian function. So, but as you age, of course, we want to make sure that you're healthy, and we basically require certain evaluation to make sure that there's no health issues. We always include your OBGYN just to make sure that they're comfortable. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I have no issues, and we actually do quite a bit of women who are in their late 40s, early 50s, and with no problems.
Samantha?
Your sirens.
Sorry about
So in respect of everybody's time, just to go back to what we were doing today is having an open discussion about egg donors and just talking a little bit more about the process. So the one thing I think here is a representation of people who are all supporting the process. And that's the important part of this. One of the things that the chosen one is a good example of somebody who's thought through what part of the process is meaningful to them and how they can really provide something to IPs and people that are looking to pursue this journey in a specific way. And Dr. Levy is obviously has years and years of experience in supporting people who are pursuing the journey to have children in this way and bringing together lots of people. What Samantha and I are here for, and we appreciate being able to bring all these people together, is just to exemplify that all of these are important pieces of a puzzle that need support either from the people that are here right now or people in your own family, your own relationships, your own communities. And we appreciate all of the emotion that goes into this and all of the pain and heartache and love that goes into creating a child in this way and persistence. So we appreciate having everyone that's here today, and hopefully we were able to answer any questions that anyone had. Talia, did you have something to say?
I think we need to leave. We have fire in the whole building. I'm so
Okay.
sorry about that. We need to leave. Thank you so much for everyone to be part of this seminar. We really, really appreciate it. Intended parents, if you need us, all our team here to help you. Thank you.
And any outstanding questions that we saw, we will follow up with you after to make sure they get answered. Thank you.
Thank you so much.